Oh my goodness. I'm starting this episode a little choking. I put on some incense, but it's too strong. It's too strong. Or maybe I just have it too close to my face. I don't know.
What I always find interesting, because I struggle with chemical scents. Like if I walk into a place that someone's like, have one of those Glades things, or they've sprayed Febreze everywhere, or people who put like fabric softener or Downy, like all of that stuff, just like it burns the inside of my nose, it burns my eyes. But natural stuff, and like incense, you have to be careful because there's like natural incense, and then there's the fake shit of that too, which will like burn you. But I laugh, because I've got my office here full of essential oils and my copal and my sage and palo santo and sweetgrass. I mean, there are scents everywhere, and not one of those scents bothers me.
Bothers you?
You put a chemical thing in front of me, and I'm like, instant headache, burn nose, eyes burning.
And I will tell you that I absolutely fucking love the smell of like April fresh mountain air, like all that chemical shit. I love it. Like I know you don't like the thing.
It's so bad for you.
I know,
so bad for you.
Like fabuloso, like anything less than the inside of your nostril being burned out is like, I'm like, I don't smell anything, right? So,
I want people to understand like the toxicity level of that.
I get it. I do. And I'm not dismissing it, but I'm just saying that like back in the day, I used to have those Glade plugins like in every single outlet. And then when you would open my windows, my neighbors could smell like the April fresh, whatever. But I was this is why I want to go live outside where there's a forest and the smells are not like, the exhaust down the street and the, you know what I mean? Like just a city smell is not a smell. It's not.
But even I'm like the weirdo. When weather permits, I hang my laundry to dry out on the clothesline.
Yeah.
Have you smelled clothes that has been dried on the clothesline?
That's how we grew up. We were outside putting stuff outside on the line all the time.
There is no better, like my bedding, like if it's raining and I have to put my bedding in the dryer, I'm like crying because there is nothing better than getting into a bed and it smells like outside.
Well, your outside smells better than my outside, let me tell you, because my outside is influenced by what other people are doing. So yeah. So I'm looking forward
I have plenty of neighbors who are, but somehow it doesn't stick to the sheets. But our Uber driver last night.
Didn't we talk before that UV rays are actually a disinfectant?
Yeah, they kill viruses, bacteria, all that stuff.
Okay, I didn't know that.
In the middle of the pandemic, they're keeping us all inside when what we really need is to go outside and be in the sunshine to kill the germs.
Well, let me tell you.
Get me on my soapbox.
That was new and exciting. I know, right? Let's talk about it. No, let's not. Let's bring on our guest, because she's fabulous, and I want to leave lots of time for her.
Here we go. Hello, Monica. Welcome to our crazy show.
I just want to jump in. I want to jump in on that conversation because it isn't like laundry smell, like Persil, like and Tide, Gain, those smells, right? Like how can you replicate those with essential oils? That's what we need to know. Like how can we make it smell like that fresh linen smell? But anyway,
what you actually need to realize, this is like the Matrix, is that there is no such thing as fresh linen smell unless you hang it outside. That's the real smell. The rest of it is just the dexomaxolacafate, whatever that we're addicted to. Julieta's beside herself.
I'm like,
guys, if you're listening to this, you have to hop on the YouTube and just look at Julieta's face like right now. Mark the time, 4:42 into the episode. Check her face. She's freaking out. And you're right. I get it.
My household has been essentially chemical free for probably at least 20 years or more. And I just cringe. It should be illegal to sell that stuff to anybody. It is so toxic, poisonous, and everybody's wondering why they're sick and they don't feel good and they have headaches every day. It's all that damn toxic shit that you're consuming. Please, I implore you, stop.
But Monica, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be with you guys this morning. This is so much fun.
Before we get too much further, we need to have Monica introduce herself to our audience. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what keeps you passionate about what you do.
There you go. And scoot over a smooch. Scoot over a little smoochy smooch. I want to see it.
Hold on.
Right there.
There you go. I tend to move around in my office.
Perfect. Look at her hair, people. Okay, go.
Gorgeous.
All right, so I'm Monica Roca-Quesada. I'm the owner and founder of Agile Planners and FinOps. And I'm all things money. Like I am very passionate about helping business owners understand their money, make their money work for them, make sure they're profitable, right? Like I would say my mission in life right now is to get people to stop talking about top line revenue, right? Like we hear all these people talk about like, I grossed $1 million this year. But like, if you're not keeping any of that money, what does it matter, right? Like, how much money are you keeping? Are you ready for the next thing? Everyone got taken by surprise with the pandemic and, you know, figuring out what we were going to do. And I would say that I'm super passionate about making sure that whatever comes down the next pipeline, that we're ready, you know, that we've got some money in the bank and that we can make better decisions, because I don't think the government's going to bail us out with loans and things like that again. I feel like that was a one-time deal, and we should be even more prepared just in case, you know? So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm all about.
And I love that you're a woman talking about this, because historically money has been the man's world, and it's really time to shift that and to get women being comfortable about talking about money and getting support with money, and it's nice to have a woman to be able to go to and resource that, because also it's, you know, as a woman, it's intimidating when the person that you have to talk to about your money is a man. So thank you for being a woman in the money world.
Yeah, thanks. I envision those conversations. I would love to, like, you know, walk in and just have, you know, I feel like it's things that we keep hidden. There's either people that are really talking about money, but then they're talking about like top line revenue, right? But imagine a world where you could walk in and have a conversation like, hey, you know, I made all this money, but I don't know if I'm profitable. I don't know if I'm keeping it. I don't know if I'm doing the right things. You know, those are the things that are going to change, you know, our trajectory in business, right? Like women are opening up businesses at a rate way faster than men right now. And yet we're still kind of playing small when it comes to having conversations about it, right? And I think the only way we can do that is by having those conversations, right? It's about walking in, and even for me, sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? Because, you know, I want to ask those hard questions. I'm like, all right, well, you know, how much money did you make this year? Like, why can't we get comfortable, you know, saying
that was going to be my question. Like, let's dig back to where this all began, because I don't know about you, but I grew up with like, you don't ask other people what they're making, which is, you know, the man being in control, you know, the man, not men, but the man, right? Like, you know, at work, you were never supposed to ask how much the person next to you was making, right? And when you go home, your parents never told you how much they were making. And, you know, because of that, like, we develop all of these money stories, right? But even in a group of female entrepreneurs, rarely have I ever heard actually anyone divulge their numbers, you know? And I don't know, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Does it invite the comparison game, or does it help lift you up? What's your perspective on that?
So I think it's a great thing that we're asking, right? Like there's been federal laws that have changed. It used to be that you could not speak in your place of employment about how much money you're making, but now there's transparency in effect, right? Like, and that's how we know, that's how we're changing the wage gap, right? Like that's how we know that we're going to make that wage gap even smaller. Like, but the only way is talking about it, right? Like if we go in, because women have that somewhat, it was ingrained in us, right, not to talk about it, then we don't shoot for that higher range, right? But now we have like salary like these salary comparisons are literally like, this is the job, doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter about experience. It has to do with the job description and what you're doing. And I think it's great. Now, what I find interesting is not all business owners feel that it's great, right? Like not everybody, it's a hard shift to have happen. But the only way that we can make it better is literally by talking about it. And what's the worst that could happen, right? If someone's not comfortable, you're going to tell that they're not comfortable about it. And we just got to keep having the conversations until we get comfortable, right? Like, for me, I meet so many amazing business owners, and a lot of times they're embarrassed. You know, they're like, they don't even want, you know, like they're reaching out. They know that they need help, but they don't want to like talk about it. Right. And so that's my goal, is to like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the goals, the wishes, the dreams. Like, what's that big lofty goal, you know, you want? Like, how do you want to spend that money? Right. Like, what does it mean to you? Because sometimes money has a negative connotation, right? Or like you're like selfish because you want more. Like, but money gives you the avenue to be able to live the life that you want, right? And that's the thing. It's not about how much money, it's about what you can do with it, right? And I think if we shift that conversation, even better, you know, like better conversations, better growth, better possibilities. Like for me, it's, you can change the world, you know, and I hope that, I just hope we get there. I hope we do have those conversations, especially in the business world. We just really started working with startup businesses, right? And it's like, out of all the venture capital money out there, only like 2% go to like women, right? Because we're not asking. Wow. There's so much money available. We're just not asking for it, right? And so, yeah, go big. Like, let's ask.
Some of that speaks to, you know, women tend to be the givers, not the takers. We are the ones that are helping everybody, supporting everybody, and we forget to ask for help and support for ourselves. And then make us do that around money, which is, you know, it's like another level of difficulty. And
but how much more could you give, right? Like, how much more could you support, right? If you had access to more capital, right? If you had access to grow your business, like how many more people could you reach, and how many lives could be changed, right? And so that's why for me, money's a mindset, you know, like anything else. And if we take the stigma away from it and we talk about the good, you know, it can do, like, and that's, you know, like I remember, you know, being you know, growing up in a Latin household, how you hear your parents say, there's no money for this, there's no money for that, right? And the truth is that there is, you know, we live in a world with so much opportunities. Look at, you know, people open up online businesses all the time, side hustles, like people's side hustles become like these multi-million-dollar companies. Like the possibilities are endless, you know?
This is why I always take issue when I talk to people, like particularly in the photography field, right? My field, where people are like, oh, people just aren't buying right now. Oh, people don't want to spend money right now. And I'm like, well, who the fuck are those people? Those aren't my people. My people want to buy my stuff because I'm creating a thing and they're having the experience and they're loving the thing. But like, don't generalize that the world is like this, or the, you know, the incomes are like that. I mean, yes, I understand there are trends. I respect that. That's great. That's follow you numbers people. You all can watch that shit. Me, I'm going to stay believing that my clientele is always going to be there and that there's always going to be the next thing, you know? But I find it so infuriating when people start just like generalizing and then talking themselves out of success because, oh, nobody's buying XYZ right now. But what? Someone somewhere's buying it. I promise you. Look for it.
For sure.
Unless you're selling DVD players or VHS tapes, like even VHS, I bet you $20 I could go on Etsy right now and find some vintage VHS player.
For sure. I mean, I think that's also too, like knowing, I think everybody's always buying. Like, have you passed by the malls lately? Like, you know, everybody's like that generalization of there's people are holding on to money or whatever. Well, clearly not at the mall, you know, not at Walmart, not at those type of places, right? It's about what would it look like if people didn't have like a scarcity mindset around spending money, right? Because they think that they can't make more, or, thinking like in business, and I'll admit that there was a time I was like that, that it's like, it's good now, but what if it's not always good, right? But the truth is that you make things happen in your business.
How did you make that mindset shift for yourself?
That's an interesting question. I realized, I think it came from more of thinking about all the things you've ever wanted in life, regardless of whatever it was, right? Like if you really, really, really want something in life, is there really a time that you didn't get it, right? Like sometimes I feel like our desire for what we want might change, right? Or the amount of effort we want to put into it might change. But if you really set your mind on a goal, did you get it, right? And so that's the thing. I think sometimes our own habits come into play, and we do talk ourselves out of it. Like, I can't have this X amount of monthly revenue. Like, that's not possible until you do it, right? And then you kind of, for me, I think a lot of it was gamification of it. Like, can I do it? Like, or if I reach this milestone, I will go ahead and, celebrate by this, right? If I do it 2 times in a row, then I'll celebrate by that, right? Like we don't celebrate the wins either. We kind of think we're lucky, and we're not lucky. We're working hard for this, and we tend to not admit that, right? Like, I'm working hard at the things that I want. It's not luck. And if I can replicate that again and again, then we're just going to continue to see success, right? Like, I mean, I guess I ask that to people sometimes. Has there ever been a time you didn't get something you really, really wanted?
And another thing, like, as both of you are talking, me who comes from this more healing and spiritual realm, there's all this judgment about, like, spirituality, and money doesn't go with spirituality. And how can I be charging more for my stuff? And how could I be denying people of healing if they can't afford the services that I offer? And so myself and many of us in that healing realm have really struggled over the years. I remember being told by my business coach that I had to raise my prices, and like the anxiety that created in me, that now I'm going to raise my prices and maybe the people who really need me to help them won't be able to receive my services. Like, how do we shift that? And because it comes from our side, and then it comes from the judgment from other people being like, how dare you charge that much for what you do? Like, you need to be accessible to everybody.
So I'm just sorry. I'm just going to jump in on this one, because I'll tell you what I thought of is, back in the day when you had a priest or preacher or a monk, right? These people that did, quote unquote, work for free. No, they did not. They were provided food and shelter and clothing, and they wanted for nothing. And in modern times, you still have that. Churches have a parsonage, and you get to have a house, and you get to have a car, and you get to have people bring you food, and you get to have your groceries paid for. So are they charging for the Dharma? Are they charging for their advice and their healing? Okay, maybe they're not charging, but they're having all their needs met, right? So a monetary exchange is simply the modern version of that. Sorry, off my soapbox.
Well, but I guess the perspective, like I would ask, right? Because I can say that we feel that too in businesses. Sometimes we feel like, we provide a level of service for a certain type of company, right? And there's people that want to work with us that maybe don't fit into that perfect, but we want to help, right? Sometimes I feel like those people are brought to you for a reason, right? Like maybe it's for their growth too. If they really want to work with you per se, right? Then they've got to do something different. They've got to get out of their comfort zone. Like sometimes I feel like we're also, as we rise, we lift others, and even in our pricing and how we charge for services, it's uncomfortable, but it's part of the growth, and it's part of their growth too, right? And like, there's been things that I've wanted to do working with a coach, a holistic person, and things. And I've thought, all right, maybe it wasn't attainable for me at that moment, but what am I going to do? Right. And it does kind of pressure you to level up, right. And do more. And I think that maybe that's part of the lesson we're supposed to teach others too,
So what's your favorite like leveling up book? Like what is a book that you think everyone should have and read? Like is it a money book? Is it a mindset book? You tell me.
So that's interesting question.
I hope you tell me it's like a romance novel, like one of those Fabio novels.
No. I would say business-wise, my favorite book to read would be Traction, because it teaches you how to like scale your business with human capital, right? And I think my favorite part of that is as you grow your team, right, to know that you have people in the right seats. Because sometimes you have the right people around you, but what you think they're supposed to do versus what they're actually doing may not be in alignment. And that book, the way that it clarifies that is super important. Because I do think that you will have the people that you need to grow and scale. They might just be in a different role than what you thought, and you have to be open to it. So I think that's really, really a game changer.
Yeah, that's definitely on a different realm of books than what we're normally talking about here. So I like that. I like, and I know a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, people that are in business for themselves. And I feel like our culture too, like really tries to push us into like these big corporations, the Walmart, the Target, I think it's so beautiful for us to keep small businesses going and people being able to make their money for themselves and not rely on, some big corporation that they're a slave to for the rest of their life. And, but we need the tools to, when I went to PT school, nobody taught us how to run a physical therapy business. We were told you graduate and you go work for a hospital or, some big outpatient rehabilitation corporation or a nursing home or whatever. But we were not encouraged to go and open up our own practice. And so that was like a huge, a giant step to take. And then, you decide to do it and then try and figure it out. And that was a big, giant mess for a while.
Do you think that I think even with the businesses that we help now, like we're seeing more of a shift of people wanting, I wouldn't say it's balanced, but it's not all about the work anymore. And they're looking for different resources, right? Like, I feel like as a culture, we're a little overstimulated. And I find that I get asked a lot, like, who are you working with? How are you protecting your peace, right? Like, what do you do outside of work? It's become a lot more of a focus than what it used to be, right? Like, I think we're seeing a little bit less of the hustle culture of the working all the time of, and I think businesses will be better for it, right? Like, I don't think there's enough conversation about what they call micro businesses, right? Because we're technically not small businesses. Like, small businesses is anybody under 50 million in revenue, but micro businesses is really like what's growing, and we're keeping that like freelance market going because we're working with all these contractors, and we're trying to like figure out this balance. Isn't the right word. I think it's life, right? Like, we have to work, we want to be present, right? I'm really thinking that this shift is going to make us better as a whole, and that we're learning to be more mindful, right? Like, we're showing up different, putting in boundaries, right? Boundaries are conversation, things of topic a lot now with these businesses. Are you like, I feel like that's what I see a lot more of.
You said people ask you, what do you do to keep your peace? What do you do to keep your peace?
What do I do? Well, I definitely have a group of people that I lean on for sure. I've recently definitely started making sure that my mental health is right with like working out. I notice that I can't show up the way I want to when I don't have some downtime. and shut off my brain. I would say my one favorite thing right now to like disconnect is walking. Like we make time to walk every day outside and actually take stock of what's going on around us. I feel like it's very easy to be in our office all day and not take a step outside. So those are things that we do. And the other thing is connecting with people, not for work, right? Like showing up to events just to be around people that I like know and love, right? After the pandemic, stopped doing that for a minute. So that's been super important, right? And also showing up for all the amazing events you guys are having. That's been a lot of fun, definitely. Those are things that I definitely do to reconnect.
Sometimes I think about like, okay, you know, do we need to back off on hosting events because, you know, there's so many events. And at one point we were doing like 3 a week and I'm like, okay, but I still have to go be with my family. And then I just see people. And when I see them together, I'm like, man, y'all this is exactly what we need. We need to sit down and we need to be with each other. And, you know, I wish we lived in a different way in that geographically everybody, like we were talking about in a previous episode where like everybody goes to hang out somewhere after work, you know, like let's say from 5 to 7 or whatever before continuing their regular lives. And like just to have that kind of like detox time, you know, because I think those are the circumstances where you could have those financial conversations in a non-threatening way, right? Like for me personally, when I'm in a group of women entrepreneurs and they are all like, everybody's at the top of their game and they're all, you know, walking in super masculine and super like powerful because it's a meeting. And, you know, like I find that to be a pressure environment where like, no, I don't want to talk about numbers, right? But then I think of, you know, when we hang out here at the studio and we just like chill and relax, it's easy to talk about anything. You could ask me anything, right? So I think the circumstances around which we creating the spaces for the conversations we want to have.
I think that's like, honestly, like, I think that's what I love about the events that you have at the studio. You have so many different women, different stages of life, different everything, and everybody connects so openly because you have curated such an amazing space, right? And there are hard conversations happening there. You know, I've seen some really beautiful conversations happen there. And that's just, we need more of that. Like, I think one of the things I've been giving a lot, like I keep saying that I have to slow down to ramp up, right? And that seems like counterintuitive, but if you're constantly on this hamster wheel of trying to figure out what your next move is, right? Like you're not even stopping to appreciate what you have, or forget even appreciate it, like understanding what's working and what isn't, right? You need that downtime. And you like, I don't know, I've had some of the most beautiful conversations ever, you know, with you guys. So I'm super grateful for that.
I'm glad. Awesome. And one thing that when you were talking about ramping down is, I forget who said it, but they said rest is part of the work. Like you have to rest to do the work, and resting isn't doing nothing. It's doing something very important.
Yeah. But like there, I will tell you, definitely need more of a mind, even for me, a mindset shift, because resting for me makes me feel guilty. Like I should be doing more. Right. And even though I can recognize it, and I recognize it in myself, that I'm like, okay, if I really want to do things, I have to slow down a little bit to be able to take stock. Right. And I'm even justifying it in how I'm saying, like, I have to do this to be able to do that. You should be able to rest. You know, you work hard. Like, I think we don't give ourselves credit for how hard it is to be in business, for how long some of us have been doing this. Right.
I have to tell you, you know, two things came to mind. One is, for those that don't know, Monica handles my books. And one of my favorite parts of the year is when she goes over all my numbers, you know, like our big meeting at the end of the year. And I always go into it hating it because I'm like, numbers, bleh, I hate numbers. But by the time she's done like showing me these numbers, I'm like, hey, man, I'm pretty good at this. I'm like, oh, okay, like I feel good about myself. And it's like, you're right. I don't celebrate those wins. And until you point out to me, like, look, you did this. And I'll, you know, like it's so important to talk about it because I barely notice, you know, I'm just like, okay, I'm on to the next hustle. What's next? Hurry up, go to the next thing, go to the next thing. And I don't even realize what's happening. So honestly, like sitting down and talking about the numbers, I always think it's going to be terrible. And it's always the most uplifting thing ever. Like it always makes me feel like, okay, look what I did. Now I can go do something else, like, or more, or whatever, you know, like, so I thank you for holding that type of space because it's different, you know?
That makes me so happy. I want everyone to have that. No, like seriously, I want everyone to have that, right? Like I want to take that fear away. And I get that, you know, like, unfortunately I get that a lot, like especially in the beginning where people are like, I didn't want to get on this call. I didn't want to do this, right? And I'm like, why? You've worked so hard. Like, you know, sometimes we don't celebrate that. Or I think what's really interesting is sometimes a little tweak can like catapult your business to the next level, right? And the same way that if you're having a problem in some other area of your life, you'll go and look for help, right? Like that's what we're here for too, right? We're here to tell you what we see, tell you how things can get, it should be fun, right? Like it should be exciting. And we just have this like fear about it. And that's the part that like, so that really warms my heart because I really do want that for everyone. I want everyone to be excited to review their numbers at the end of the year.
Sometimes I wonder if the not wanting to celebrate or forgetting to celebrate, or the part about feeling guilty resting, you know, you said that earlier. You know, I love me a TikTok. The other day I saw a TikTok that was talking about, have you ever, like, are you such a doer that when you are sitting at home, let's say reading a book or drinking tea, like doing something that you consider to be like, okay, this is just for myself, it's just chill time, and somebody walks in the room, you kind of jump a little bit, like you got busted resting? I don't know, like, does that ever happen to you? Because it happens to me. Like I'll be reading a book and then like I'll hear my partner open the door because he's home, and suddenly, and it's not, has nothing to do with him, but it's just my own childhood, right? Of like, you know, it's the American dream. You should be hustling. We came to this country so that you can have a better life. And, you know, and like there's this pressure constantly of like, we must do more. Even how the United States was founded, right? Like all these people died so that you could live. And it's like, fuck, I just want to drink a tea. But in my head, you know, I feel it, like I catch myself because I'm like, oh, I should be working. I should be doing more. What did I miss? You know? So I don't know. I that's part of my work that, you know, I'm constantly undoing. Like you said, you know, resting is part of the work. Yeah. Thanks, Lee. Lee said it too.
It should be. I mean, like I have that, like when my husband walks around, he's like, what are you doing? Like if I'm like sitting on the sofa and I'm like, why was I supposed to be? I automatically feel like, was I supposed to be doing something else? Like I don't. So I get that, but how interesting that we feel that way and so strongly, right? Like I don't like I think the moment that I realized that I was like doing too much is like when I'm listening to trainings as I'm like doing laundry, washing dishes. Like there's no time to just not do anything, not think, not have, you know, and I don't think that gives us the space to grow, right? Like we need to be creative, we need to play, right? Like for me, I think I've mentioned it to both of you. My new thing is Legos, right? Is putting these Lego sets together, and there's no way you can't think about anything else because you're following these instructions and every piece or whatever. But it actually gives me so much more focus, and I can't think about the to-do list or anything that should be done at the house. And I feel like that downtime is giving me capacity and space to grow. Beautiful. I would say you definitely play more.
I'm feeling a FinOps Lego set, branded, ready for the business. I'm going to say that's your onboarding gift.
That would be really cool. Like I'm going to definitely look into that.
Write that down. What time is it? How are we doing on time? We're getting close.
Yeah.
Can you just tell everybody real quick what FinOps is? Because I know that's your newest venture and we haven't really talked about it very much, but we have a very diverse audience. So maybe there's some connections out there.
So FinOps was created. FinOps is a financial operations platform. It sounds big. It like sounds like it's like, but it's really a way for us to pull in all of your data from multiple sources, right? One of the things I tell people all the time is that I kind of challenge them. I think everybody has an e-commerce business right now, right? Like think about your photography business, right? You wouldn't think you're an e-commerce business, but you kind of are. You have online contracts, people pay online, right? You have multiple systems, different things you're using for different platforms, all of those things. And what we found, at least for me as an accountant, what I found is I was constantly having to pull in all this data from multiple systems, and it was super time consuming, and you have to manipulate the data and get all these like exports and all this other stuff done. And FinOps was built to solve that problem, right? Like to have one central location for all of your data that could give you KPIs and metrics. And, you know, sometimes you want something simple, right? Like what is my biggest package, or what do I sell the most of, right? Or something like, you know, like how many, think about demographics of your customers, like how many fit in between this, who's buying the most of that, right? Typically, if you wanted to go old school, you would look through all of your invoices and kind of manually create a spreadsheet and get all that data, but it would be a manual process, right? So the beauty of FinOps is that we can customize that for you. So if you tell me, hey, I want to see, I'm going to capture this data from my customer. I'm going to capture their age. I'm going to capture, you know, whatever. And you want to see what is the average age of your customer, we would be able to provide that for you. In addition to all the other full accounting functionality, like connecting to your accounting system and also giving you dashboards and things like that. So it is a souped up level of what we do for businesses on the back end, but to give you access to that data every day.
Imagine how much more powerful your marketing would be if you know exactly who your top performing clients are, right? And then you can duplicate those. That's incredible. You wouldn't have to be, you know, just taking good guess at your ideal client. You'd have your actual live picture of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we're really excited about as we start talking to different companies and the needs. And that's the interesting thing, right? There was a time when, at least in the accounting world, there was like the fundamental ratios, right? Your current assets and these things, and those things are still important. But the truth is that business owners look at their data in very different ways now, right? Like most of the time, and I love that about what I do. I meet business owners and they're like, I created this spreadsheet and it calculates all of this and all these, because that's the way they want to see the data. And it's valuable to them, right? So finding an important, like an easy way to get that information to them is part of our process.
Sounds so like it's awesome that that's fun for you, because my brain does not go there. And why there's so many different kinds of us on this planet here for all of us to do our special niche.
This is why people like us hire people like her. See? That's exactly.
I can think of, well, I mean, there is though, like there's so much data, and it really depends, right, on like what you want to see, like, and how you evaluate what's working and what isn't working, right? Because not everything is a metric about money, right? Like sometimes it's reach. Like how many people was I able to help? How many people like all those kind of things are important. And it really comes down to what's important to the business owner to know.
I think for me, one of the perspectives that you provide is that like my go-to, especially like Julietta, never having been trained in business, kind of just figuring it out as I went along when I started 10 years ago. I really thought the answer to everything was, well, just work harder. Like if I'm not meeting whatever monthly I had wanted to reach, it's just because I didn't work hard enough, you know? And then you end up in this like vicious cycle where you're like, but I'm exhausted. I feel like I'm working super hard. Why isn't it paying off? And because you're in this isolated, like you said, micro business where it's just you, or maybe you and one other person, and you're so closed in that you can't really see it. You know, I remember when I wanted to buy this studio where I am now, which is so much bigger than my old one. And I called you and I called my personal financial advisor and I was like, am I crazy? And they're like, no, you're fine. And I was like, I am, you know, like I literally had no picture that I was in a good position to do this, you know, and getting the space catapulted everything. I mean, that really just opened up my business even more. So I appreciate the close tie between numbers and mindset and joy, really.
Yeah. No, you know, it's interesting because I think like our role is to guide, right? Is to like give perspective. And that's a big shift in the accounting bookkeeping world, right? Before it was like, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, right? And I don't necessarily buy into that. It's like, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get, right? Like sometimes I think the old mentality was like, but the business has potential for X, right? And that's great, but do you want that, right? Like, what is it that you want? And working those numbers in a way to give you the life that you want in your business, right? And it's super important. One of the things that we ask a lot is like, personally, what do you want your business to give you, right? Like, what kind of life do you want? And for some of us more seasoned business owners that have been doing this for a while, I think what we don't talk about is the exit, right? Like, how long do you want to do this?
I'm Gen X. I think I'm supposed to work till I die. Isn't that the plan?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, is that your plan? Like, is that what you want? That's the thing, right? Like, what is it that you like? For some of us, like I envision my idea of retirement, right, is doing exactly what I do today, but not having to depend on it to be able to pay my bills. So I think I will work all of my life because I always want to do what I'm doing, but having to do it for monetary value will change, right? Like maybe that's what it, and I don't know that we're all having those conversations, and we should, you know, we should talk about like especially if it's a more challenging type of job, right? Like how long do you want to do it? Do you want to do it into your 60s, 70s? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I've had conversations with business owners that are like, I'm going to leave it to the kids, and then the kids don't want it, right? Like, did we have those conversations? Do they want to be, you know? So I think it's important, right? Like that we talk about what does it look like in 5 years, right? Like, what if you can have an exit? Like, do you want to sell your business? Do you want to keep it? Like, what do you know, like there's a lot, to me, those conversations are fun, you know, and the more we talk about them, right, we take the fear away from it, and we get to dream a little too, right? Like dream of what the future holds.
Beautiful. I love seeing you like talk about this. Like you have the gleam, you know, the glow in your eyes, the way Graciela does when she talks about photography, and the way that I do when I'm talking about my healing work and such. And so it's beautiful to see that in like a topic that is so stressful for so many of us. So it brings comfort and the thought of possibility that we could release stress around this topic in our life. So thank you so much for joining us today and bringing this conversation. Because again, money's not easy to talk about, and we get to start making it be easier. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And, you know, I definitely, you know, definitely want to talk more. Anybody that wants to reach out, you know, we can have these conversations, group conversations, no stress, no worry, just talk about the things that we want, right? And come up with a plan to get there.
I love it. I feel like maybe we need to do a chakra balancing money class, right? Like Absolutely. Mixing these things together. Yeah. And we'll have Monica show us how to talk. I love it.
Beautiful.
All right, guys. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you all.
Thank you.